Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Gender Speaker Live, where I'm going to be talking today about the business case for trans and non-binary inclusion, but actually beyond that, for the whole LGBT inclusion. Hi, so we're talking today about the business case behind this. And I'm doing this because I still get a sense that a lot of people still don't think it's worth it. I've done a lot of work on transgender inclusion, transgender awareness training for the past 15, 16 years. Very little of that has actually been with large corporates. Now, a lot of them are doing a lot of work, and I'm going to show you in a minute a short video about 3-4 minutes, just to give you some sense and idea that there is a quite strong movement with some big named organizations behind trying to improve LGBT inclusive, not just in the UK, but right across the world. And as we've got more and more multinational companies, so it becomes an international issue. And as you may remember, when we talked about the Buggery Act a couple of weeks ago now, that act, that piece of legislation, which really started with Henry VIII in 1533, was exported as we started to go out and colonize the rest of the world. We took with us all of that very negative legislation and embedded it there. And I was looking the other day at some countries, because I'm looking at doing some work for a client that has some operations in Singapore. And I've been to Singapore a few times, and I quite like Singapore, but I hadn't realized that homosexuality is still illegal in Singapore because it was imported by the British and it still remains there. So what I'm going to do, first of all, let me just pick up on this video and have a quick look at this, because there's an organization set up called Open for Business. It's a charitable organization asking for donations, but it's funded by some very large organizations, by some very big names. I'll give you the web address for it later, but have a look at this and just listen to what these big, well-known CEOs have to say about the.
Open for Business is a coalition of 22 leading companies who all want to take a stand on LGBT inclusion.
It's sad that this subject should even have to be discussed in this day and age. It just should go without saying that everybody should be treated equally and properly, and by and large the debate should have been one on a global basis.
In many parts of the world we're literally going in the wrong direction, and that's difficult not just from a personal point of view or indeed a moral point of view, but actually from a business point of view.
We all operate in parts of the world where the LGBTQ community is not as welcome, or in some cases it's outright not welcomed at all.
This is really about people in countries all over the world who are facing persecution.
Business leaders can take a lead and put pressure on governments to try to change some of these ghastly laws that still exist.
One of the really important things Open for Business is doing is to bring together organizations to build a comprehensive business case for LGBT inclusion, backed by solid evidence and quantified across the board.
We need to work as leaders in the business communities to share that perspective. It's a strong case on what's right to do, but it's also a strong case on the economics.
There are many, many reasons why a company being LGBT inclusive is good for a company.
If you look at the list of the Fortune 100, those at the top actually also have good scores in how they look at diversity from a business perspective.
Diverse teams perform better on two important dimensions. One is they make better decisions. The second thing that diverse teams often bring are unique examples and profiles. You always learn something new when you meet someone from a different background.
I don't think there's any question that diverse organizations perform better. I know for a fact that a diversity of perspectives and opinions enlivens dialogue and always comes up with a better answer.
There's so much research that says when people can be themselves, they contribute at a higher level, you get more creativity, you get better teamwork, and you get more impact.
The friction and tension that comes with different perspectives being heard and valued leads to really fresh ideas and great new ways of getting things done.
The positive is true. The presence of more diversity drives higher performance, but the absence of diversity also is correlated with negative performance.
It just doesn't make business sense to discount any person based on things like their religion, their race, sexual preference, or gender.
Being open for business has to be grounded in your core business objectives. I don't think about it as branding or PR or CSR. I think about it more as part of your license to operate, and do your business practices actually evidence that you're open for business?
What's fascinating is society expects business to have a point of view on these things, and business is one place that can actually take a stand.
I think the power of a collective business voice is extraordinarily strong.
And collectively, we're able to move the ball further than we can do individually.
And if other big businesses do the same thing together, we really can make a difference in communities around the world.
So if you're able to promote diversity and inclusion by reference to the fact that it's better for business, better for society, better for the economy, that's also able to push the argument to a different level.
Open for business is a great thing to do, but it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. You're dealing with what is an issue that is very contentious in certain parts of the world, and not everybody in your organization is going to come along with you.
I think leadership is always about taking some bolder, occasionally controversial decisions. Open for business for us is a great way to make a very clear statement.
I think global companies have a unique opportunity to impact the world and workplaces around the world. We all have a responsibility as global leaders to be promoting open environments and pushing for diversity.
It's why we believe in the Open for Business Coalition.
So, it just seemed to me that it was in this particular podcast today that it was better to let some other people speak for me. Open for Business is gathering momentum. It's got a lot of people joining it and being part of it. And what can you do? What can your organization do? Well, quite simply, support this general sense that creating a more diverse, more welcoming, more inclusive workplace environment. Taking that action, you don't have to get out there and campaign for it. Just make your workplace a diverse workplace. I used to hear people say quite often things like, that there are so few trans people, it's just not worth doing all the training and everything else. But here's the point. Other people said we don't have any trans employees, but I know they did. That's the whole point. You don't know if you've got people who are gay in your organization. You don't know if you've got people who are trans unless they are out and let you know that. You don't know if you haven't got people in your organization who've got friends, families, colleagues, people that they know who are gay, who are trans, who are in a minority that is being treated badly. And most minorities are treated quite badly. And we've seen the whole eruption of the Black Lives Matter campaign. And I know not everybody's supporting that. Not everybody likes it. And there has been some pretty negative press picking up some negative attitudes. The trans community, we have got trans activists who are not doing anybody any favors with their unnecessarily aggressive attitude. I can understand why. I can understand why they're battling back against some pretty aggressive attitude from people who could describe themselves as gender critical. Now, I don't want to close any of those debates down. I hear people trying to shut people down, no platform them so they're not able to talk. Now, that's the wrong way to deal with this, in my view. We need to be able to if people have a problem, then voice it. Let's discuss it. Let's air it. Let's debate it. Not shut people down, prevent them from speaking, which I see far too much of. And I see politicians doing it on question time. Somebody tries to speak and they talk over them, try and shout them down. We have to be prepared to allow people to speak. And sometimes people coming out with a negative, I find that when you let them speak, it's actually the best thing possible because, what they say sounds so crazy that nobody's going to believe it anyway. But let people speak, let things come out. I was sitting in a public toilets in Leeds a couple of years ago. I'd attended one of the Mind Body Spirit fairs, and I don't usually spot people who've read that I'm trans. I don't particularly try to hide it. But in the main, I wander around and people don't really take any notice. I'm just there. And even if they do realize I'm trans, that's it. They're beginning now to not take any notice about it. But this particular two women spotted me, and I saw them tracking me and looking. I thought, oh, no, we'll leave it. Anyway, I'm in the toilet in the little cubicle minding my own business, and suddenly I heard one of them, or heard them coming into the toilets. I couldn't not hear them. They were speaking so loudly. Well, all I can say is that it shouldn't be allowed. In New York, they have separate toilets for them now. And I thought, oh, this is going to be... And I had one sitting on one side, one sitting on the other side, having a conversation over my head about the pros and cons of allowing trans women to be able to use female toilets. I don't know quite where they think I'm going to go. I'm certainly not safe in men's toilets. I use female toilets. I go in, I do my business, I wash my hands, and I leave. Occasionally I might have a conversation. But generally, that's the way we treat toilets, isn't it? There isn't any evidence anywhere of anyone, of a man dressing as a woman in order to go into toilets to attack other women. It just isn't what men do. The last thing a man who wants to attack a woman is going to do is basically put himself in a vulnerable position by cross-dressing. It just doesn't happen. If people cross-dress, it's because they're trans, because they actually feel that that's how and who they want to be. And if I'm going to use toilets, I'm going to use female toilets because that's the safest place for me to be. And I'm not going to make other people feel uncomfortable. I'm going to do what I need to do and get out of the way and not cause a problem. Yeah, it's about respect, dignity and respect, showing dignity and respect for other people. And that's what we all need to do. But these two people carried on their conversation. Of course, I allowed them to be suitably embarrassed when they came out by standing there and waiting for them as they came out to see that I had heard their conversation. But it was the point that somebody said, one of the women said in the middle of it, well, you just don't know what to say, do you? And I thought, that's it, isn't it? It's this fear of, I don't know what to say. I'm going to make a fool of myself. And I hear the same conversation about people who are black. You know, are they colored? Are they people? I don't know what the words are anymore. Yet they're people. You hardly ever need to talk about it. I live as a woman. Call me a trans woman. That's it. We can deal with it. Pronouns we'll have to sort out whether it's she or whether it's they, them. I generally encourage people to say they, them now. But we can deal with those issues. We deal with that through training, for putting people through training courses. And this is the most important thing that I think all organizations need to do, is think about the kind of training that you're going to be doing. And I suspect that a lot of people are finding it difficult. We live in this difficult COVID environment where every organization is struggling to survive. And we're about to go into this big second wave. We have no idea what the consequences of that are going to be. But here we are, Christmas, October, November, December, the best 3 months of the year for the retail trade, for lots of organizations. Huge, big boost to earnings and to spending within their by their customers. And it looks as if it's going to be, the brakes are going to go on because everything is really, really ramping up. We're just seeing more and more cases every day. And there are lots of people saying, no, I'm not going to do this. So we've got a bit of a battle that's going to be happening. But at the same time, the danger here is we end up in this binary world. The people who are in favor of wearing masks and trying not to spread the virus, and the people who think the whole thing's a big con and we're not. So then we get a battle between those two. The battle between people who are supporting Black Lives Matter and people who aren't. The battle between trans and the anti-trans. And we seem to be in this really weird world of all these binaries. And once again, in your organization, you can't allow that to come up because it has to be stamped and it has to be dealt with so that you get rid of those binary positions, those oppositional positions. And that happens through training. So I'm putting a training course together. It's based upon the workshops that I've been running for the past 15 years. updated now to take account of lots of changes that are taking place, and obviously updated to reflect the fact that we're now in an online world. So it's going to be on Zoom. At the moment, that's the plan for Zoom. I'm looking at, I'm doing these on StreamYard, which are more like webinars. Next week, I've got a few guests coming on, so we're going to be doing a few interviews, and I'm going to keep on doing these because it's quite good, it's quite useful, quite helpful interaction that I can get going, and I'm learning about the technology because, from what we can see from the speaking business, this isn't short term. We're here. We were thinking things were getting back to normal, and then all of a sudden now we know it's not. Meetings are not going to be happening, not until next year. So for at least the next 6 months, I know that we're going to have to get used to doing training online. But there's some benefits about that, aren't there? You don't have to travel to them. I just had a meeting yesterday with people from all over Yorkshire. I had a meeting the other day with people from the locality. A few days ago, I had a meeting with people from 4 or 5 different countries in the world. And I haven't even left my little studio here. I'm able to jump into those meetings and go from meeting to meeting around the world. Suddenly, I'm getting people actually asking me to do work in America, in parts of Europe that never would have happened before because immediately there would have been the costs. So all of those costs of traveling and the difficulties and the length of time traveling, all of that's gone. We can now actually handle meetings effectively, and we're getting better at them. That's why I'm doing these, is largely to help me to get better at doing it, but at the same time to share information and find out what I need to know about making sure that I can communicate and effectively using various different platforms to make it happen. So the information down in the is down below in the details here. Just click, go to Eventbrite and book on the program. Now, I haven't set a specific price. It's new. I'm still developing this. So as it's in development, and maybe for a good time, I've been talking to a few people who are saying, we don't know who can afford what at the moment. There are literally over 1 million people now out of work as a result of COVID, and it may start to get worse. So I don't want to exclude people simply because we're having some tough times. At the same time, people who are having a good time, well, they can't afford to pay a reason fee. So what I'm saying is pay what you can afford. I've suggested a minimum of £20. It's a 2-hour workshop. I'll be around for another half an hour for quick Q&A afterwards. It's tightly concentrated, lots of interaction. At the end of it, you will have a clear idea about how to make your workplace more LGBT and particularly trans and non-binary inclusive. So we'll be looking at all those aspects. It's all tightly packed, not as sort of free form as these sessions have been. 2 hours, at the end of which you will clearly have a clear idea about how to make your organization a more trans, more LGBT inclusive, more friendly place. And that benefits everybody. By taking simple actions, you can make sure that, when people come, they know that this is a safe place, that they can be themselves. And if people can't come to work and be themselves, you're not getting the best out of them. You're not getting the best that they can be. You're getting the least that they can get away with. And that's the danger. If I can't have a conversation about going out with my partner who happens to maybe not comply with your stereotypical view of what my partner should be. If somebody comes and if they're gay, they want to talk about the partner and it's a same-sex partner. And we should be getting the hang of that now. If I'm changing gender, I go out for a night out. Not everybody lives in their new gender. I know I didn't for years. I lived partly, I worked as a man, and in the evenings and when I went out for the weekends, I very often went out as a woman. And I know a lot of trans people who do that. And the same with trans men. There are some people who live different lives. They live a different social life, a different work life. And I need to be able to be comfortable about people knowing that that's who I am. So in that workshop, we're going to be dealing with all these sorts of aspects. It's going to evolve. I'm looking for feedback so that I can make it become a very interactive, engaging and helpful workshop that enables you to be able to go away and change the workplace, change the environment to make it more constructive and more inclusive afterwards. So have a look down below. You'll find the details below. Click on there, come along and join me 20th of October. And I look forward to seeing you then. For now, I shall be back tomorrow. Not an interview tomorrow, but I think interviews start on Thursday. So not every day, but I'm just still looking to try and get more and more people in. I've got about 4 people lined up. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time here, 4 o'clock. Have a good evening. Take care.